and realize that you're not going to find that calling by yourself, and you're not going to be able to do that calling all by yourself. You're going to need to humble yourself and be able to acknowledge that God is the only one who can help you through that. Now, you see, the lion Peter is talking about that's roaring around, prowling, is not any ordinary lion. This lion has a disease. This lion has an infection. And that brings us to our next checkpoint, which is anxiety. This lion can do so many things to you. This lion isn't just going to attack you with anxiety. In fact, the enemy, which is the lion, is an able enemy. He is clever. Everybody in here has their own strengths, correct? Everybody in here has their own talents. But as well as that, everybody in here has their own weaknesses. And everybody's weakness in here is different from the person that's next to them. And just as the devil knows the Bible, right? He also knows your weakness. And he's going to attack that anytime he can. Now, for me, the way the devil attacked me was through anxiety. And anxiety is real. Anxiety is something that's not often talked about in church. It's often not talked about in public at all. It has been now recently, as of recent years, which is really good. Now, you see, at the beginning of the last year, February 12th, I started struggling with anxiety myself for many reasons, because life happens, right? And we can't choose the problems that come to us, but we can choose how we react to them. But unfortunately, I did not react to them in the right way. When I would get an anxiety attack, my heart would be at 195 beats per minute, and sometimes even faster. And it got to the point where I didn't want to wear my watch because, well, now I'm wearing my watch, but it's dead. But my watch, when I'd get anxiety, it notified me about my heartbeat. And every time it would happen, it'd be like, oh, your heartbeat's going up. And like, yeah, I know, like, you don't have to remind me. So I would take it off. I wouldn't wear it. I actually went a whole 8 months without wearing my watch. And that's why I decided to just ditch the watch, right? And I started looking for ways to cope, which one of them was not charging, the watch. But the other one was to search for people in who I thought I could trust. But the reality is that sometimes the people you think you can trust and the people you think that will be there will not be there when you need them the most. And I started to take control of anxiety all by myself, and that made it even worse. Now, sometimes when I would get anxiety, I wouldn't want to go to class. And for the classes I did go to, it'd be really foggy. Like, if there was something, like a lesson that I didn't understand, I'd immediately start getting anxious and I'd just walk out of class. So it affected literally every aspect of my life, right? And sometimes after an anxiety attack, I'd get sleepy and I'd be like, okay, you know what? I don't want to be awake right now, so I just go to sleep and call it a day. It got so bad that I had a car and I drove home and I left my car there because every time something bad would happen, anytime a trigger would happen, I'd immediately go off in my car to nowhere without telling anybody. But every single time, it was literally every single day that I would drive hours and hours as me coping with it and as me running away from my problems. And there's one time in particular where I was walking around the creek at Wau, and I cried out to God because I realized that I had been trying all these coping stuff to be able to deal with my anxiety, and I realized that it wasn't working. So I cried out to God and I told him, okay, God, I don't know why I have this, right? But if you gave it to me, it might be for a reason. And to be honest, I can't take it any longer. I don't know why I'm feeling this way, and I don't know why it affects me so much. Like, why did you give this to me? Because everything does come from God for a greater purpose, and we'll get to that in a second. But have you ever questioned God? Sometimes it's like when you question God and you tell people, oh, I've been asking God this, they're like, okay, trust God, you don't have to question him because, everything works out for the best. But in reality, it's okay to question God. We have this tendency to look at God as God. Yes, he is God, but he's also our friend. He's also somebody who is next to us when we're dealing with something. And I think that's an amazing thing. Why? Because you can just talk to him as you would with your friend. And something that I learned throughout the Bible is that the best kind of prayer is an honest prayer. In fact, we get that, and which I think I'm preaching May 10th, so we're going to talk about that later. But there's a story in the Bible about Lazarus, right? Who here knows the story of Lazarus? Perfect. All right, well, there's this verse in the Bible, in the story of Lazarus, that says that when Mary ran out to meet Jesus, she started ranting to Jesus. She started saying, if you were here, my brother wouldn't have died. And I think that's so important because that's the first thing she said to him. In her pain, in her suffering, after seeing her brother die, she teaches us that the most honest way, that the best way to approach God is with honest. He doesn't want your flowers. He doesn't want you to try to sugarcoat your problems. He just wants you to be sincere and to be honest, right? Now, I told God, I don't know why you gave it to me, and I need you to take it away from me. But if it's something you're not going to take from me, and if it's something I'm going to deal with my entire life, then I'm going to need you to show me a way that I can cope with it. Because I've tried it all on my own, and it hasn't been working out. So, you know how I told you guys that I would drop off my instance? My mom came to drop me off at school, and I started thinking of everything that could go wrong while I was in the dorms. And so I started thinking, I started self-sabotaging my thoughts. I was literally on purpose thinking about all the ways, all the things that can go wrong. And then I started getting anxious. So what did I do? I was in the passenger seat, I put my hoodie on, and I put my AirPods in, and I went to sleep. And in that dream, I saw myself from the top of the truck. And as I saw myself, I heard a little voice ask me, "What's wrong?" And in my dream, I started crying. But at the same time I was crying, these tears turned into words. And it was like me talking to God through my tears, through my pain. And out of nowhere, have you guys seen marbles? They're like really small little, have you guys seen marbles? They're like really small little sphere like